You're listening to an Ono Media podcast.
Good morning, and thanks for joining me for Rise in Crime, your morning caffeine hit all about crime. I'm Mama Jules, and of course, I need to give you the rest of the story to the Delphi Murders trial. When I brought you Monday's podcast, I figured we'd have a verdict pretty quickly. So I chose to give you all of the trial updates in that episode, knowing that this episode would be the one where I would confirm if 52-year-old Richard Allen would be found guilty or innocent of the grisly deaths of Abby Williams and Libby German. And it's guilty on all counts. After 18 hours of deliberation over 4 days, the jury, comprised of 7 women and 5 men, delivered the verdict that some of Indiana was hoping for and some of Indiana wasn't. But you guys, it's probably not over. And Richard's wife said as much as she exited the courtroom on Monday. Judge Francis Gull also said as much. Now, before the verdict was read, Judge Gull said the following: regardless of what the verdict is, people will not be happy. Now, she couldn't be more correct, because of course, Libby and Abby's families hugged and they quietly sobbed when the verdict was read. But Richard's wife was consoled by her family in the corner of the courtroom. Outside of the courthouse, people began to chant guilty once the news of the verdict filtered out to them. All right, so where do we go from here? Well, Richard Allen will be back in the courtroom on December 20th for his sentencing. He faces up to 90 to 130 years in prison for the 4 guilty charges. Now, if he loses his appeals, he'll likely die in prison. And we won't hear from the defense or the prosecution much before that sentencing hearing. All of that because Judge Gull has left the gag order in place. At the sentencing hearing, victims' families will be allowed to speak, which will pretty much be the first time we'll hear from them, since most of them have remained silent since Richard Allen's arrest 2 years ago. Now, Kelsey German, that's Libby's older sister, she did post on social media following the verdict a picture of Libby and Abby wearing neon glasses. The caption simply said, "Nearly 8 years. Today was the day." Now, one woman who was sitting outside of the courthouse, she was awaiting the verdict. She told the Indianapolis Star that she hoped the verdict meant the town could return to normal. She said for years, everyone looked at every man, wondering if maybe he was the bridge guy. Now, the 5-year wait for the arrest of Richard Allen left some in the community frustrated with law enforcement, claiming they bungled the investigation. And I get it. I could give you plenty of ways that they did, but I could also back some of those things that they did by saying it helped move the investigation along. It's just kind of all in what frame you look at it. But one thing is for sure. This trial was an expensive but worth it cost for the state. It was estimated that the overall cost was about $4 million. And if we reflect on Kathy Allen's words as she left the courtroom, she said, "This isn't over at all." I think we can expect the appeals process to soar forward, and it looks like she's staying by Richard's side. I'll let you know what happens in December at the sentencing hearing. And now to this bizarre yet creative crime story out of Wisconsin. It all began back on August 12th of this year, when at about 5:30 in the afternoon, deputies responded to a call saying that 45-year-old Ryan Borgwart of Green Lake County was missing. When authorities arrived at Green Lake, located in central Wisconsin, they found Ryan's car and trailer parked along the bank of the lake. And floating in the lake was Ryan's capsized kayak. Now, these signs don't look good because in that area of the lake, the water's about 220 feet deep. Okay, so what's the Occam's razor here? The most obvious explanation. Well, it looked like Ryan had come to the lake for some downtime and that possibly a horrific accident had occurred. As various law enforcement agencies gathered their resources and began searching the lake, a nonprofit search and rescue group called Bruce's Legacy, well, they jumped in with both feet. Keith Cormicon, with that search and rescue group, well, he pretty much spent the next 4 weeks scouring the lake, searching every part of Green Lake, looking for Ryan or at this point, Ryan's remains. They had found clues. Fishermen had discovered Ryan's fishing rod just the day after his disappearance. And then later on, his tackle box was found. And inside that tackle box were his wallet, the keys to his car, and his license. But other than those items, nothing about Ryan's body was discovered. With no success, detectives and Keith and Green Lake County Sheriff Mark Podol, they called an executive meeting. Essentially, they were going to regroup, and they were coming to the conclusion that Mark obviously was not in Green Lake and that it was time to take this investigation into a different direction. Well, maybe it was fate, or maybe it was manifestation. But just shortly after the group decided they needed to begin looking elsewhere for Ryan, the sheriff uncovered some valuable information. Ryan Borgwart's name had been ran by Canadian authorities the day after he was reported to be missing. Now, the only way that could have happened is that a living and breathing Ryan had some sort of contact with Canadian law enforcement. Well, partnering with U.S. Customs and Border Protection, also Homeland Security, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation, in addition to state and local investigators in Wisconsin, authorities began to uncover more evidence suggesting Ryan was alive and well and had not succumbed to a drowning in Green Lake. And then some other clues started to fall into place after that October 7th discovery of the Canadian check. A forensic audit of Ryan's laptop began to tell a tale of an engineered disappearance and a potential reappearance in Europe. Okay, you're probably wondering why the laptop hadn't been audited before then. Well, it was being audited. It just took time because the laptop had a brand new hard drive and all the browsing history had been cleared away the morning of what was considered, up until now, a fatal kayak trip. But the information on the computer wasn't bleached. It had been saved to the cloud, and it just took time for investigators to retrieve that information. When they did, they discovered that Ryan had photographed his passports. He also had reported that his passport had been stolen or misplaced, and then he had obtained a replacement in May of this year. Another thing, he had taken out a $375,000 life insurance policy that just months before his August 12th disappearance. Ryan had also moved some money around. He had kind of established a foreign bank account, and money had been deposited in that account just days before he went missing. All right, would this whole elaborate scheme be complete if there wasn't another woman involved? See, Ryan's married, and he's the father of 3. And investigators are now thinking he didn't want to be married or be in charge of caring for his 3 teenage kids anymore because there's a new romantic interest in his life. Through a new and not shared email, Ryan had been communicating with a woman in Uzbekistan. Okay, with all of that information, Sheriff Podol told the family of Ryan just days ago that their father and husband wasn't a victim of drowning. Authorities said they believe he is living in Europe, and the elaborate scheme was hatched months ago in preparation for that afternoon on August 12th. As the sheriff held a press conference on Monday, he thanked Ryan's family, saying that he specifically wanted to thank Ryan's wife. He even called her one strong lady. He said the following: "Whenever we called on her, she always responded, and she gave everything that she could for us. I cannot imagine what she's going through and they're going through." He then directly spoke to Ryan by saying, "Ryan, if you're viewing this, I plead that you contact us or contact your family. We understand that things can happen, but there's a family that wants their daddy back." Now, the sheriff did say that Ryan will be expected to pay for the resources that were used in his rescue efforts. He, however, did not specify what charges Ryan is facing if and when he returns to America. The sheriff also gave mad props to Keith Cormacon of Bruce's Legacy. He said his efforts cannot be overstated. This is so heartbreaking for his wife Emily and his 3 kids, Levi, Nora, and Jeremiah. To believe that your father is dead from a tragic accident and then weeks later be told that he just abandoned his family to live a new life. Oh, the damage those 3 kids must be experiencing. I'll keep you updated on whether Ryan is found or if maybe he just decides to hang out in Europe. And remember the story I brought you a couple of weeks ago about the man found dead on the toilet of his elderly, dementia-embattled mother's home? Well, this one is just as unbelievable, and it's also out of California. A week ago, the Los Angeles Police Department was called to an El Sereno woman's home. She's believed to be about 93 years old. She was concerned about noises that she kept hearing in her crawl space. As the police began checking the home, it became apparent to them someone was under the house. And unlike other crime stories, this someone was alive and living there. It took several hours for police to extricate the man, but they were successful once they used tear gas to force the man out from under the home. And once that naked guy was removed, he was naked when they got him, officers found blankets and food in the crawl space. Okay, you've got so many questions, right? First off, what did the noises sound like? Well, according to the woman's son, the noises happened kind of later at night, and they seemed to be almost like communicative. Say, like the woman's walking on the floor and the noises would mimic her walk, but be almost like someone was knocking back from underneath the home, just in the same cadence as the walk. You guys, I would have been out of there. I would fumigate it. I would spider bomb it. I would burn it down. I would perform an exorcism. I would do something besides listening to the noises. Now, I know your next question is, how long had the noises been going on? You guys, for 6 months. 6 months this woman had heard these noises. The next question, how big is this crawl space? Well, it did cover the entire length of the home, which isn't a big home, by the way. I'll have pics of it up on social media and also on this YouTube feed. So it's about 2 feet tall as well. So the length of the house and about 2 feet tall. LAPD was able to identify the man as Isaac Bentoncourt, and he's been charged with trespassing. He has already been released from jail, and he should appear back in court on December 6th. The family told NBC News they will now secure the crawl space so this doesn't happen again in the future. And how about this story from Chipotle is My Life files? Is my audience too young to know that video?
Oh my God, I love Chipotle. Chipotle is my life.
Well, Chipotle is getting sued, and it's by the company shareholders. Yep, there's tension from within. The class action lawsuit stems from Chipotle allegedly concealing the growing unhappiness of many customers. Those angry customers are saying the portion sizes are inconsistent, specifically in the burritos and the rice bowls. Now, the angry customers spoke out via TikTok. This was all led by a man named Ryan Lynch, and his video got thousands and thousands of views. And he's complaining about the implements used to scoop protein into the burritos and into the bowls. Okay, in more than a dozen TikTok videos, Ryan increasingly became dissatisfied, and he didn't hold back. Here, just take a listen to just one of his videos.
So Chipotle finally gave us a response, and guess what? They didn't do a really good job. Chip, get a publicist to read over your quotes before you send them out. And after the month you had, come on. Your chief corporate affairs officer told Ad Age, we have not changed our portion sizes and we continue to receive praise for the incredible value our entrees offer. Ugh. I can feel the lack of compassion and accountability just oozing all over me from that quote. Because a little over a month ago, I started making these videos to, in a silly way, criticize Chipotle so that they would listen to our customer feedback. But after reading that quote, we all now know that you may have heard us, but you didn't listen to a thing that we said. Let's try an exercise. This is called an ear, and we use our ears to listen to things, Chip, okay? So when you hear music or someone speaking, or when you receive customer feedback from millions of people that are outraged by your lack of response, you want to listen and make sure that you put some thought into the answers that you put out. Maybe Tell us why you won't consider using measuring cups or weighing your proteins to improve the consistency of your entrees. Instead of talking about how you're receiving praise for the value that your entrees offer, the only people that are giving you praise are your stockholders. It's not a good look. So before the next time you double down on charging double check your quotes before putting them out. Like I said, Chip, get a publicist. It'll do you so well navigating through what you put yourself into. And in the meantime, chip chop.
Well, Brian doesn't seem to be wrong. Instead of adjusting anything in their restaurants, Chipotle doubled down after the online criticism, and they chose to re-emphasize that they deliver, quote, generous portions to customers at more than 3,600 restaurants. But the damage was already done. Stock prices fell in both the second and third quarter. And who's going to have an issue with that? The shareholders. So they filed suit against Chipotle seeking unspecified damages that resulted from February to October of this year. So how's Chipotle responding now? Well, the chief executive officer, Brian Niccol, he abandoned ship and took a leadership role at Starbucks. And CEO, the current one, Scott Boatwright, well, he's had his title removed from company websites and directories. So who knows what's up with Scott? Prior to online videos, Chipotle enjoyed large gains quarter after quarter, like in 2000 and 2021. So it was truly sticker shock for the shareholders when the stock prices fell and the company experienced a $6.5 billion loss. Look, I've only eaten at Chipotle twice in my life. It's not even here in my place in Idaho, but I would love to hear from you on this. What do you think of these social media campaigns and their ability to so dramatically affect a company's bottom line? To tell you the truth, I could actually argue either way on this one, but I want to know what you think. Now to a quick story out of Indianapolis that I can't shake my head enough about. On Friday, 39-year-old Derek Sink and his family, well, they touched base with each other. They were chatting, just everyday stuff, and all seemed to be well. But by Sunday, they hadn't spoken again, and his family was getting worried. They were worried enough that they called the cops and said, hey, we think Derek's missing. Okay, let's be clear. Derek does have some issues. On Friday, he was still wearing his ankle monitor, and his family said he was doing his best to, tackle his demons surrounding substance abuse. I get why they're worried, but they hadn't seen him, and it's Sunday. And cops don't really go looking on Sunday, so they start their investigation on Monday. Well, something also happens on Monday. The doors to a local Planet Fitness, well, they opened up at 9 a.m. And when gym goers walked inside, the gym didn't smell right. Well, despite the smell, it wasn't until afternoon that someone discovered Derek dead in the tanning bed of the gym franchise. And Derek had been in the tanning bed since Friday evening. Okay, that explains the smell, but there's other things. This is tragic all on its own. It gets worse, you guys. The gym was open on Saturday and Sunday, and it was open for 4 hours on Monday before someone found Derek. How is this even possible? Do gym owners clean this place at a minimum? Do employees walk the premises before locking the doors each night? Derek's family did tell a local TV station that a needle was found in the tanning room with Derek's body. And once Derek was found, detectives did verify that his ankle monitor tracked to the Planet Fitness on Friday night, and it didn't leave that area. Planet Fitness did make a statement saying, we are deeply saddened by the passing of one of our members, and the franchise owner is working with local authorities in their investigation. At Planet Fitness, we have robust operational brand protocols in place, as the safety and well-being of our members is our top priority. We are working closely with our local franchisee to ensure they are upholding the brand protocols. I'm not sure they were. We'll just see. And finally, an update to the story that I brought you a couple of weeks ago about the man who was found at the bottom of a ravine, dead, following a strange and misleading 911 call. If you'll remember, the caller out of Tennessee gave a fake name. It was actually a stolen identity. And he said he had been attacked by a bear And then he had fallen down a cliff and then he needed some help. When authorities arrived, they found a dead man who didn't match the identity given by the caller. What ensued was a search for Nicholas Wayne Hamlet, who had a propensity for stealing people's identities. Authorities were also tasked with identifying the man at the bottom of the cliff. All right, here's the update. That man was identified as 34-year-old Stephen Douglas Lloyd. Police learned that Stephen had been befriended by Nicholas, but not for good reasons. Detectives allege Nicholas became friends with Stephen purely for the intent of murdering him and stealing his identity. And Nicholas was preying on the weak here because Stephen had a troubled past. He had mental health issues dating clear back to when he was placed with an adoptive family as a child. Police allege that after Nicholas learned of Stephen's mental frailties, he lured him into the woods and killed him so that he could use his identity. And it worked for a bit because, see, the dead hiker was found on October 18th following that fake 911 call. The first reported sightings of Nicholas were on Halloween in South Carolina, so he got away with it for 2 weeks. Then on Sunday, a hospital worker recognized Nicholas as the man that law enforcement had been searching for. You guys, this is one of the reasons we cover these stories. If enough awareness is raised, a hospital worker states away may recognize the alleged criminal and an arrest can be made. Well, this worker alerted law enforcement, and following a fingerprint scan, some U.S. Marshals, they identified him as Nicholas and the suspect in Stephen's death, and they took him into custody. Nicholas is now awaiting extradition back to Tennessee, where he is facing a first-degree murder charge. Okay, hopefully, this is the time that, if found guilty, Nicholas stays behind bars because he has a troubled past also. In 2009, he was charged with attempted murder in Alabama after police said he held a man at gunpoint and attempted to hit him with a baseball bat. Now, he revealed during that alleged crime that he intended on burying the body in a rural area in Alabama. Okay, here's how it all went down. He made friends with a man under the guise that he would be selling him insurance. When the two men met at a park to talk business, Nicholas held the man up by gunpoint and walked him into the nearby woods. Now, he already had a shallow grave dug there. When the man saw the grave, he fought back, severely wounding Nicholas. He was able to get away and call the authorities, leading them back to where Nicholas was laying there wounded. And the injuries to Nicholas were so severe, he was life-flighted to a local hospital where he recovered after being placed in a medically induced coma. He was then charged with attempted murder and kidnapping, but it was pled down to felony assault. Okay, Nicholas already had 4 previous felonies, so combined, he was sentenced to 20 years in prison. And clearly he didn't serve the entire time, and he was let out on parole, only to allegedly turn around and do nearly the same crime again, except this time, I guess you could say he was more successful, if you can call it that. Now, Stephen Lloyd, who was found at the bottom of the ravine dead, he was considered beloved by his family, according to Monroe County Sheriff's Office. He loved the outdoors, and when he experienced his mental difficulties, he would tend to escape to wooded areas to be alone amongst the trees. His family said he was helpful with others and that they tried to help and support him even when he didn't want to receive their help. All right, and as a follow-up to some DMs or some comments that I've received on either the YouTube broadcast or on our social media channels, I just wanted to read a few of them. First, this one by JG264. They say, for anyone to think that someone, even someone who is suicidal, could ever stab themselves more than once, especially after 2 hits to the brain, is just atrocious police work. I hope someone with some common sense eventually investigates the cover-up that's happening with Ellen's case. Okay, this person's referencing Ellen Greenberg, the case that has now been marked inactive after several years of her parents fighting for it to be ruled as a homicide instead of a suicide. You know what? You're not the only one who said something like this. I totally get what you're saying. I do hope eventually Ellen's parents can get some sort of support in this case. And then from someone with the handle My Gray Wolf, they're asking for possibly a Native American case since it is Native American Awareness Month. I have to do an extra episode for Thanksgiving because I'll be traveling to go see my kids. I'm absolutely going to try to find a Native American case that I can cover for you for that extra episode because I'll have to do it a little bit ahead of time so it won't be breaking news. So I will do my best to get one covered in that. I appreciate that. I do want to point something out about the Native American cases that is just it's just kind of heartbreaking. I'll tell you, they're very hard to cover. Here's why. It's hard to find reporting on them. It's very, very hard. I have covered a couple of cases out of Alaska. I'm telling you, it is just a different frontier up there. There are not details that are out there. There are not specifics available. It's very difficult, and that explains why this person wants them covered more. They just don't get highlighted. It does totally break my heart. I will try to find you one. And then multiple people messaged in on Monday's episode talking to me about how the verdict had been already established later on Monday. You were so grateful that Richard Allen was found guilty. It's interesting. The press in that area seems to act like the community members are divided. I didn't see any of that in the comments. So if you do live near there, let me know. Do you feel like people are actually siding with Richard Allen and that they have gotten the wrong guy with these two murders? I would love to hear somebody express their feelings on that, because all of my listeners were very grateful that Richard Allen was found guilty. All right, that's your Thursday episode of Rise in Crime. Thank you for the comments. And let me know if you like me sharing these little tidbits at the end of the episode. I love to get you more involved. I love to hear what you're thinking about the episodes and the crimes. That's what this community is about. I have also received several 5-star reviews and positive comments. I can't tell you thank you enough for that. It does help the channel grow. It helps all the way around. Helps with advertisers. It helps with everything. So a big thank you. Join me again on Monday for more morning crime news. I'm Mama Jules, and keep safe out there.